I want to thank the Grobsteins for opening up their home. This is the second time. This is the second one, and of many, God willing. She's already volunteering you for future classes.
Here every month.
Oh, you do?
Okay.
Wow.
Have they grown?
Wow. Am I okay?
Yeah, you're good.
I'm now okay.
You're the same as you were before.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you, Sharon, for getting the word out to your peeps, aka the women. For those of, I think everyone here knows me, Shlomo Seidenfels. I'm part of JMI. I'm so grateful that 4 years ago they approached me. I started teaching some classes at the Ostermans, and that led to this. And it has been, to use a word that's used way too much, it has been a transformative experience for me as I experience Israel not only through my eyes, but through your eyes. So Rosh Hashanah is right around the corner. How could we not get together and prepare together as a group and as a community for Rosh Hashanah? So I want to, this Rosh Hashanah, actually, the first day of Rosh Hashanah is in sort of like launches us into this 10-day period that culminates with Yom Kippur. So it's not just a coincidence that they're next to each other. There's this 10-day period, starts with Rosh Hashanah, culminates in Yom Kippur, and it's called Aser Yemei Teshuvah, the 10 days of Teshuvah. 10 days of Teshuvah. Have you heard the phrase Teshuvah before? The 10 days of Teshuvah. Teshuvah is incorrectly translated as sort of repentance. Or let me say it better. That is a very limited translation of the word. And since Teshuvah is what we're trying to accomplish during this period of time, it's really important for us to understand what that means. What are we trying to accomplish here? What is possible? Not more than what are we trying to accomplish. What is possible during this 10-day period of time? What is possible? So we have to understand what Teshuvah is. And then I want to focus a lot on the one mitzvah that people associate with Rosh Hashanah, and that is what? What's the one mitzvah? Shofar. Shofar. So we're going to examine the shofar, and we're going to experience it, and hopefully you'll bring this experience to wherever you're going to be. We're going to experience some depth that a lot of people aren't really fully aware of, because it's a very mysterious mitzvah. It's a very mysterious mitzvah, or certainly our understanding of it is limited. Let me start, though, with something that I recently came across. So we're going to understand what teshuvah means. It's the 10 days of teshuvah. We better know what it means, otherwise it's not happening. So it's the 10 days of teshuvah. What does teshuvah mean? Right? And shofar. How does shofar play into it, pardon the pun, and how is it such an instrument of teshuvah? But I want to begin. That's not necessary. I do this. I get paid. So I want to begin with something that I recently came across. I'm always hoping and looking for new ways of understanding things. Have any of you ever heard of the invisible gorilla experiment?
Yes.
You have. Very good. In 1999, a Harvard professor came up with this experiment. And as a result of this experiment, he sort of arrived at a theory that talks about attention. It's the name of the theory, I think, is inattentive. I'm blanking on the second part of it. It'll come to me. This was the experiment that he did with his students. He had 6 to 8 students in a room, and they were broken into two teams. One team was wearing black shirts, one team was wearing white shirts. They both had basketballs, and they were passing basketballs to each other. You pass the basketball to somebody on your team. He had other students observing this whole thing, and he instructed them to pay close attention to how many passes happened between the black team and how many, so he designated some students to pay attention to the black team, some students to pay attention to the white team. Pay very close attention, because I'm going to ask you afterwards how many passes happened during this period of time. Did I mention this the other night? I did. Okay.
It's also on YouTube.
It's also on YouTube, yeah. In the middle of this, there was a man in a gorilla suit that walked in front of the students, or in between the students, stood there, beat his chest, and walked off. That's what he did. Good. Afterwards, it's strange, bizarre. Some of the social experiments that come out of the universities are really funny, but they're very, very adept at testing certain theories that professors have. So at the end, he asked the students not what they were expecting. He didn't ask them how many passes happened between the two. He asked them who saw the gorilla. And he was very, very surprised how many people never saw the gorilla. Didn't notice the gorilla at all. So he's thinking, so basically his theory, and it gets better, his theory was that when you are fixated on something, right? And here you were instructed to be fixated on something. There is a lot that you're going to miss that happens right in front of your face. So in 2013, somebody took it to another level and showed an X-ray to radiologists. And in the corner of now radiologists, these are medical professionals who are trained and paid to be very, very painstakingly careful about examining an X-ray for any kind of perforations or any growths or anything. In the corner of the X-ray, there was a gorilla. In the corner of the X-ray, there was a gorilla. A person in a gorilla. 83% of the radiologists never saw it. When I first looked at it, I didn't see it either. It took me a while. And I'm not a radiologist. Now, it makes sense, the radiologist, because you're not looking for a gorilla. You're looking for some kind of defect. The point of the experiment was this, and I'm extrapolating from the experiment, and I'm sort of like going to apply it to our lives and in general. We are, all of us, very fixated on a lot of different things. We're fixated on making a living. We're fixated on wealth building. We're fixated on our appearances. We're fixated on fill in the blank. We're very fixated on a lot of stuff, and stuff that happens right in front of us we don't see. We don't appreciate. We don't notice. What we do notice is what we're fixated on. We won't necessarily notice quite often the blessings of our life. So comes the shofar, and not only shofar, comes or woven into our lives are certain experiences that help us, that pull us out of this very, very narrow, focused attention so that we see the bigger picture. The best analogy I ever heard was this. I don't know about you, but I'm a huge museum person. When I was in New York, I'm from New York, if you haven't been able to tell that already. You would if you were in front of me in a car. Trust me. You'd find out very quickly that I'm from New York. So I used to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I was in yeshiva, spent a lot of time in yeshiva. I needed a break quite often. So what does a good yeshiva boy do when he needs a break? Well, I went to a museum. I don't know about other yeshiva boys. I went to a museum. I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, spent a day there. And I loved French Impressionism. So when you walk into a large room in any classic museum, what do you see? You see art that's lining the room, on the walls, and then you see benches in the middle of the room. And ostensibly, what are they there for? Why are the benches there? To sit and appreciate the art, right? You don't have any benches right in front of the art. You don't see people, unless you're an art history student, standing right in front of a piece of art to appreciate the art. Why? Why don't you get as close as you can to appreciate the art?
Because then you only see the paint.
Because then you only see the paint. Now, if you're an art history student, that's maybe significant. But for us, we have to step back to see the picture. That's true about life. You have to step back to see the picture of life. That's what Shabbos is, by the way. In a nutshell, that's what Shabbat is. And it's no coincidence that Shabbat shares the same root in the word etymologically as Teshuvah, which we said. Shin, base, shav. Because they're both periods of time, both this 10-day period of time and every week is there to help, to give us distance so that we can break away from that which we're fixated on. And there's a lot that we need to be fixated on. I'm not saying that you have to be fixated on making a living. You have to be fixated on a lot that we are. But when you're fixated, you don't see a lot. Now let's go to Teshuvah, the 10 days of Teshuvah. Because as I mention a lot, and those of you who come to my classes have heard it, the men certainly, if you want to understand any reality in life, anything, you want to understand love, rage, jealousy, fill in the blank, a couch, something that you sit on. Take the Hebrew word, reduce it to its shorish, to its root, and you will see the essence of that thing captured. So the Hebrew root of the word teshuvah is shav, which means not to repent, not to apologize, not to confess, to return. You knew that. You got a ringer. To return. This whole period of time, here's something that's really sort of like a little bit of a paradigm shift for people. This period of time is not about changing. You think Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, I'm changing. Of course there's behavior we need to change. But in a larger sense, by the way, I'm trying to make eye contact with everybody. So, I'm on a swivel over here. So in a larger sense, this is not about changing your behavior. This is about returning to yourself. Returning to yourself, because somehow we've lost contact with who we are. Our deepest, most authentic, purest self. And by calling this, and by giving this period of time the title of return, the implication is as follows. That when we're not behaving in the way that we feel that we should, the result of that is we distance ourselves from ourselves. We're not truly ourselves, not fully ourselves. That's why so many people, myself included, find it so powerful to go off into nature, or to find a quiet, or do mindful meditation. Why do we do that? Because a tree doesn't judge me. I don't put on airs in front of a mountain. I am completely and utterly and purely myself. That's exquisite. To be that. That's what we're feeling. Now we've got to learn to do that when we're with people. We can't just be ourselves on a mountain range. We've got to be ourselves, be comfortable with ourselves, accept ourselves, be honest with ourselves. Everywhere. That's a tall order. So this period of time is about sort of like returning to ourselves. Let's move to shofar. So Maimonides, also known as the Rambam, said that, and he's not the only one, that the shofar is there to wake you up, or to awaken something within us. I prefer to say it that way, to trigger something. Now, honestly, music is a powerful, powerful medium. There are certain songs that just open me up. Sounds of Silence, Simon and Garfunkel. There's a new version of it, by the way, a recent version of it by an interesting band that is a real. The name of the band is called Disturbed. You ever hear of Disturbed? So these guys do some, over the years, they've done some hard rock. Right, Mark, what's the name of that genre?
Metal?
Heavy metal. So a heavy metal guy who's a Jew who went to yeshiva and moved away. His brother lives in Israel. His last name is, it'll come to, do you know his last, Drazen or something like that. Anyhow, he does a rendition of this that will, if you enjoy this song, is so deep and so soulful and so powerful, especially because it's coming from someone who is filled with so much rage.
What's the name of the song?
The Sounds of Silence. We'll play it.
I just got it so fun. Somebody else, I didn't know this band until recently, and I heard that song on the radio, their version of that, and I just got out of the library. I think there's one called, I think it's on an album called either Asylum or Immortalized or something. But yeah, I mean, they're hardcore heavy metal.
Hardcore.
But then they pull out.
But then they did this, and he didn't even know whether he wanted to do this because it's so. Anyhow, so that's what it does for me. How does shofar work? How does that wake me up? Be honest. You're sitting in the shul. And by the way, by the time shofar comes around, right, it's before Musaf, so you've been there for a while, unless you came late. You've been there for a while, right? And now you hear the shofar. So maybe on some level, you've been in shul for so long, the shofar just literally wakes you up. Maybe it literally wakes you up, but it's supposed to arouse you in a very deep, soulful way. How does that happen? What do you feel that? Have you felt that? Can we even attach words to it? What does it do? I mean, it's sort of like a charge, and it gives you a charge.
It's primal.
It's primal. Anyone else want to share?
Like it's so historical. I mean,
historical.
So it goes so far back.
Wow, that's actually, you're onto something there, because Reb Sadia Gaon offers 10 reasons why we blow the shofar, and a couple of them have to do with biblical historical events where the shofar was blown. And you know, the soul is not like the body. A body decomposes. A soul composes. A soul doesn't go anywhere. So in other words, our souls have been here forever. So we have, talk about past life regression, we have in our souls, we can hear something and not know it, but it's triggering a memory, a soul memory that dates back to when the Torah was given, that dates back to when we conquered Israel. So on some level, Reb Sadia Gaon says what you're saying is absolutely true.
It hits a tone. It's a deep resonance, and you don't hear that. You do not hear that tone except for during the holidays. Right.
Oh, so you're saying that's the only time you hear it, so you have an association with that tone and what we're doing.
Partially, but also there's a physical reaction to the resonance of at least for me.
Oh, good.
The shofar. You can feel the shofar.
You can feel it, but it's hard to put into words. But you feel it. It's resonant, and it really it dovetails with the theme of the day, the themes of the day somehow. Okay, yes.
Well, and sort of along the lines of what Randy said, I think that almost every culture has something similar. I mean, you could look at modern, you want to talk about heavy metal and bands. If you're at a concert, sometimes the bass guitar literally can start shaking your body.
Yeah, there's a vibration. There's a vibration.
Right, but so other cultures, in I guess Buddhism, the Om that you do when you meditate is designed, I mean, they apparently, obviously it was created before the science, but scientifically that sound is like the perfect resonance, the perfect pitch. If you do it, it just connects with your body. The shofar, I think, has a similar effect.
That's true. And the same thing with the gong when they
Yeah. In the Asian world. Well, there's a vibration.
Right.
And you're supposed to follow, when they do the gong, you're supposed to follow it. You're supposed to focus so much on it until the sound literally disappears.
Right.
But that's only focusing only on one time. But if you're gonna try to realize what's happening, once you hear it, you're asking the question, why is it there? And you realize, wait a second, it's a month of a loop. Oh, what's happening? 30 days left, I better do something good. So we're talking about the one time, what is causing.
Well, what he's saying is that a lot of people don't realize is that starting the month before Rosh Hashanah, every morning we hear, whoever's in shul hears the shofar. And it's there to remind us Rosh Hashanah is coming, and we all constantly need reminders. It's very powerful. It's a powerful reminder.
It's a call to arms. I mean, at least.
It's a call to arms. It feels that way. It feels like a call to arms. Correct. Yes.
I was just gonna say like a call to action, but it seems like it starts with it and then it ends with it. So is it like call to action at the beginning, and then when you do it at the end of the service, it kind of is the wrap up at the end of the service?
Right. So this call to arms, to call to get back in touch with yourself, to return on some level, that's what I want to talk about. And what's fascinating is this, and trust me, a lot of people who are ringers, who grew up hearing shofar, don't know this. I love throwing out stuff like that because that way I get your attention. A lot of people don't know this. This is on a need-to-know basis. And by the way, you need to know. How many shofar blasts do you need to hear minimally in order to be yotze, in order to satisfy the mitzvah of shofar? By what I mean is, in order for shofar to get into your kishkas, if you know what those are, how many shofar blasts do you have to hear minimally? Now, our custom is, don't say 100. Because 100 is the custom.
100?
We so desperately need the shofar. It's 100. Over the course of davening on Rosh Hashanah, if you're there for the whole thing, you're going to hear 100.
Holy Mother.
Holy Mother. Okay. Anybody else? Minimally. It's not 100.
I think it's 3.
You think it's 3? Why? Just because?
Because there's 3 different cadences when they blow it.
Oh, so that's interesting. Okay.
I'd guess 7.
7. Because that's a big Jewish number.
Yeah.
18. Let's write all the big Jewish numbers. 4 from the Seder. 9. Okay. So I'm gonna tie the two of you together. Not literally. I'm sorry.
That's another class.
That's another class. Yes, that desperately needs to be given. The minimum number of blasts that you have to hear are 9, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you how you know this. Because Rosh Hashanah is known as a Yom Teruah, a day of blasting. A day of blasting. It says Yom Teruah. Now remember, here's the regular sort of like rhythm of the blasting. You have tekiah, unbroken note, followed by a broken note. Now there are 2 types of broken notes, either da-da-da-da-da-da or da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? Because we're not sure which one is correct, so we do both, right? That's what, the ABCs of Jews. We don't know what to do, we're doing everything. Okay, so that, and then it's followed by an unbroken note. Unbroken, broken, unbroken. That's a set. It says Yom Teruah, a day of notes, 3 times, so we need 3 of those. So what do? 3 times 3 is 9. So you have to hear 9. Now you want to hear more, but you have to hear 9. Okay? You have to hear 9 in order for it to get into you. Now here's the fascinating thing. Really fascinating. You probably heard this. I probably did this at Osterman. I wanted to give Osterman a plug. The number 9 is the most unique of all numbers. Forget Jewishly. Mathematically, the number 9 is the most unique of all numbers. It has a principle that doesn't exist by any other number. And we'll do a little exercise so I can show it to you. Okay? What's 9 times 7?
63.
What's 6 plus 3?
9.
That's interesting. What's 9 times 10? And it's 7. No, I said 7. 9 times 11.
99.
What's 9 plus 9?
18.
What's 1 plus 8?
9.
No matter what you multiply, what's 9 times 54?
Hang on.
486. What's 4 plus 8 plus 6? 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. No matter what you multiply the number 9 by, it always, listen, it always returns to 9. 9 is the number of return. It's the number of teshuvah. That's what?
If you ask the accountants in the room, they will tell you
Yes.
that it's also a way of finding errors in streams of numbers.
Is that interesting? Wait, so tell me what you mean.
I don't exactly remember how it works, but if you have when you start adding up the numbers, if they add up to 9, you'll probably find that there's a transposition of the.
Oh.
3 and 9. If you're off, if you're trying to put something and you're off by 3 or 9, there's likely a transposition error. You've got a number reversed.
Okay, beautiful.
So I told you, ask the accountant.
Beautiful. There you go. There you go. Okay, so number 9 makes perfect sense because this whole period of time is a period of teshuvah, a period of returning. We become estranged from ourselves. We fixate on things, right, exclusively, and it becomes our whole world. We need to return and really, and it sounds like new agey, but it's true. It's essentially true. We've all experienced that, I hope. We've all experienced those rare fleeting moments where we feel utterly, completely comfortable with ourselves. And we all know when we're in the company of people. You know what I tell people a lot? I think I may have said this the other night. Do you know how you know you love somebody? Do you know how you know you love somebody? Now, this could be an intimate partner or it could be a friend. That you have a real deep soul connection with somebody? Here's the test. If you love who you are when you're with that person, if you love who you are when you're with that person, this is a relationship to invest in. I'm not saying not to invest in other relationships to try to get to that place, but that means you're utterly, utterly comfortable with who you are. You're utterly honest with who you are. That should be in marriage. That's what should happen. It doesn't happen overnight, but that's what should happen. In good friendships, where you're nourished by that friendship, that's what's happening. That's what you're experiencing. So we want to return. We want to be ourselves, and not only on a mountaintop, but out there in the world. Okay, so now shofar. Here, I want to share 2 ideas, 2 life lessons that come from the shofar. And it'll give you maybe a new appreciation for what's happening subliminally, because we're hearing the shofar, right? We're getting it. We're feeling a vibration. It feels like a charge. Is it anything more? Is there something else that's going on subliminally? So, I want to share 3 ideas with you. What's interesting about the shofar is, or what's significant about the shofar, is that it is a breath-based mitzvah. It requires breath. You don't have to blow the shofar, by the way. There's no mitzvah to blow the shofar. The person who blows it, you want the person to blow the shofar to be a person that has integrity and is a striving person and someone who cares a lot about others. You want him to have certain sort of like qualities. But there's no mitzvah for you to blow the shofar. The mitzvah is to hear the shofar.
Question, is it always a man that blows the shofar?
Depends. I guess it depends what shul you're in.
No, that was, because I've never seen a woman ever.
I'm an awesome chef.
Are you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Blew the trumpet in high school.
1 second. Do you have a shofar here?
Oh.
Oh, well, you could have. Had I known.
But I don't do it as...
In shul, not in shul, right? So yes. So it's a breath-related mitzvah, and we're going to find the significance. We're going to see really 3 beautiful ideas that flow from that reality.
That seemed something that struck me that seems to be a common theme. The same with the Megillah. You have to hear it, right? There's
Yes.
not a mitzvah for you to read it, but you have to be present when it's
It's
being read. And
right.
I think there are a couple others that you're supposed to hear, not necessarily do on your own.
Well, that's a whole separate but very related class on hearing.
Okay.
Right? Because the mantra of the Jewish people,
Hear.
right, is what? No, one prayer. Shema Yisrael. I call it a shmantra. That's what it is. It's the mantra of the Jewish people. It has to do with hearing. Not with seeing, not with doing, with hearing. Okay, so it's a breath-related mitzvah. shofar. So there are a couple of ideas I'm going to share with you, and feel free to, these classes, not only my classes, but certainly my classes, but Torah study should not be passive. It should be dynamic and interactive. In other words, when you hear something, your wheels should start turning. When somebody poses a question, don't only wait to hear, or don't only be preoccupied with what the teacher says. Take those questions home and see what you come up with also. So the question is, what is the significance of the primary mitzvah on Rosh Hashanah, which is all about, launches this period of Teshuvah, being a breath-related mitzvah? So we start with a pasuk, we start with a verse in the Torah right at the beginning. Here's the verse in Hebrew, and I'll translate it. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. And God blew into his nostrils a living soul. That's when man became animated. That was the creation of humanity. He didn't do that with zebras. He didn't do that with flamingos. I don't know if you saw that viral YouTube of the flamingos in Florida. You saw that? Walking all over the place. He didn't. Only by man. Only by man does it say Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. He blew into his nostrils. He exhaled blew into us a nishmas chaim, a living soul. So, on Rosh Hashanah, which celebrates the creation of humanity, by the way, according to one opinion, there are two opinions. According to one opinion, man was created on Rosh Hashanah.
I'm sorry, did you just say he blew the soul into the man?
Yes.
Not life.
Well, Nishmas Chaim, the soul of life, the life force of the man, of humanity was blown into him. In other words, you could have a body.
That's not what made a man be alive. That gave him soul. In other words, animals don't have soul.
Well, that's a whole other question. Well, no, you can't derive that. I understand why you want to derive that. What you want to derive is, since it doesn't say Vayipach ba, but he blew into a nishmas chaim, into an animal, that means they have no soul. It's not so clear there. And every creature, right? Every creature has some level of neshama, has some level. So animate, inanimate. It was created by God. It is invested. It was anything that was created by God is invested with something. Right? When you're looking at a tree, you're affected by that tree because it was a creation of God and it's emanating something that is
100%.
Right.
It has energy.
It has energy. But we're talking about the life force that is unique to humanity.
Just to a man.
Just to humanity.
Right.
Is that the godly soul versus the natural soul of animals?
Well, you mean sort of like the animal, the animal instinct, the animal soul versus the more elevated soul. Yes, correct. Yeah.
Did he blow into a woman too?
Well, first there was man. Right. First there was man, but yes, man, woman. Right, but according to the Medrash, just as an aside, there is an interesting Medrash teaching that says that the first man, or the first humanoid, right, was a man and a woman back to back. There's such a Medrash. And then they were split into two. So in other words, until they were split, guess what? We were one, and we both saw the world differently. Has anything changed? Has anything changed?
Yes, that was true.
What? Well, so according to the Medrash, I'm just curious about that. According to the Medrash, what's that whole thing with the rib? Okay, so that's a good question, but we're not going to go there. So it's breath related. So I want to share three ideas with you. Idea number one, is that we are most alive when God is blowing through us, when God is in our life. He blew into us a nishmas, a soul of chaim, of life force. We are most alive. It doesn't mean, you can be biologically alive and not fully alive. You can be biologically alive and be on autopilot. very fixated on just certain things. You can be on autopilot, or you can be deeply and dynamically alive and driven and energetic and courageous and compassionate and everything. So so on Rosh Hashanah, we're reminded that what we're seeking, what we should be seeking, is just not another year. Give me another year. A year of health, a year of wealth, a year of nachas from our kids. Give me another year. We should be asking for a year of life force. That's what we should be asking, because that's what we all want. And that's what was blown into us. Point number one. Point number two, and I particularly resonate with this. So Rosh Hashanah is a breath-related mitzvah. Rosh Hashanah is also the day that God blew into Adam, into man, his nishmas chaim. What is being taught, conveyed through this synchronicity, is that we are supposed to be God's shofar in the world. We're supposed to, we have the possibility of waking up the world. When you hear that Jews are supposed to be a light unto the nation, that's what that means. That we have the capacity, and once you have the capacity, what I like to say is, what's that term? Oh my gosh. All right. It'll come to me. Capacity compels. If you have a talent, you have the capacity, it compels us. We are here to be God's shofars in the world. And I'll tell you something, and I'm sure you've seen the quotes from John Adams and Mark Twain and all these interesting non-Jewish sources, intellectuals, talking about the contributions of the Jews to civilization, not just to the moral content of society. That's what we're supposed to be. He blew into us a nishmas chaim, and on Rosh Hashanah it's a breath-related mitzvah because we're supposed to be shofars in the world. That's a tall order, but it's also something that intuitively we know. What's interesting is this. Rosh Hashanah is known as Yom Hadin. Have you heard that term before? Yom Hadin? What does Yom Hadin mean? Judgment Day. That sounds even harsher. Judgment Day. Day of Judgment. That's it.
Yom Kippur, Day of Judgment.
Well, see, I'm going there right now. Right now I'm going there. It's referred to as Yom Hadin, Day of Judgment, right? But guess what? On Rosh Hashanah, there's none of this. There's no vidui, confession at all. It's a day of judgment and you're not confessing? Doesn't it make sense if this was truly a day of judgment, that confession would be part of the day of judgment? We're being judged on well, by the way, we're being inscribed. We have until Yom Kippur to truly mess it up, or to truly strengthen or to seal our names in the book. So why is there no? Come on in. Oh no! Actually, it was the wind.
It's Elijah.
Oh, what perfect timing! We've been waiting for you. So, where was I? I lost my train of thought. The Mashiach.
About not doing this.
Oh yeah, why don't we do this? Why no al chet, no vidui, which is this whole long list of confession, on a day of judgment? So one idea is this, and I'll tell you something, I really think that this is really a huge, almost like shift for people in their approach to Rosh Hashanah. Right? Because I think for many people, they think, okay, I'm going to be focusing on Rosh Hashanah, all of the stuff that I want to change, that I'm embarrassed about, that I regret, all of that. And yet, in the prayer service, there isn't any of it. That's not what we're supposed to do on Rosh Hashanah, obviously. That's what we're supposed to do on Yom Kippur. The question is, why aren't we doing it on Rosh Hashanah? And if we're not supposed to do that, what are we supposed to do? So we're not supposed to focus on particulars. Not at all. You know what's supposed to happen on Rosh Hashanah? We're supposed to, in this environment, triggered by the shofar, triggered by our own introspection and our own desire for connection, we're supposed to just develop or plug into this general regret not for something specific, but for not being the person that we know we can be. You can be focused on specifics and lose sight of the bigger. The bigger is, there's a person intuitively, I know this, I am better than I was this past year. I'm better than that person. Without focusing on any details whatsoever. I don't even want to talk about this or that. Intuitively, we know that. Intuitively, we carry that with us on a daily basis. We know that we have a capacity to be better than we've been. To be stronger, to be more courageous, to be more compassionate, kind, patient, whatever. We know that intuitively. Rosh Hashanah is not about the specifics. It's about plugging into this general feeling that we all carry with us, almost like on a daily basis. There's a quote, one of my favorite quotes from Thoreau, if you know Thoreau at all. He wrote, "Most men lead lives of quiet desperation." Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. I agree. The quiet desperation of knowing that I am more. There is more. I can be more. How do I get there? That's Rosh Hashanah. No al-chetz whatsoever. Be there. Close your eyes. Get moved by the prayers. Get moved by your own ruminations. Commit yourself. You know, it's interesting. Tshuva, which we were talking about, return, is a dance. It's got 3 steps. I'll show them to you right now. One is charata, regret. One is azivas hachet, being in a situation where you failed in the past and rising above it, and then confessing. Those are the 3 parts to tshuva, right? It doesn't help to regret something if you don't change that behavior, right? It doesn't help at all. Oh, I can't. If it doesn't, so your regret was obviously was not transformative enough. So you have to have all 3. You have to have the regret, and then you have to have the leaving something behind, and then you have to have the 3rd part of it also, the vidui, confession.
I'm so sorry, I am so really confused. You just said Rosh Hashanah is not about this.
No, because it's the 3rd. No, I'm saying this whole period of time, Teshuvah, is a 3-step dance. It starts with regret. It ends with this, with confession.
By the time you get to...
By the time you get to Yom Kippur, you've developed this help. Not on Rosh Hashanah. No, right. You start from there and then you move. I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying that. And I'll tell you why the order is the order. Because it would be easy to jump into this. Easy. Can't we all just make a list? If we really dedicated ourselves to the task, could we make a long list and just go through it? Yes, of course we could do that. But here's the kicker. You only regret something. I'll tell you what I don't regret. I do not regret that I cannot dunk a basketball. I don't regret it. Not one day have I regretted the fact that I can't dunk a basketball. You know why? Because it's not in the cards. You only regret something that you believe you can do and haven't done. Then you regret it.
Put a value judgment on it.
Say that, what do you mean?
So if you were an incredible basketball player, but you happen to be 5'10", right?
Yeah.
then you may not physically have the ability, but you still may regret it because you put a value on there because that's what you do. You're into basketball, that's your career.
So then you're putting a value on something that you can't do. But most people, that would fall more into the category of fantasy. Like, I fantasize about having skills that I don't have, and how amazing would that be? But it wouldn't fill me with regret. Regret is something unique to I can and I'm not. Does that make sense?
Like I should have.
I should have, but I didn't.
Or I did it and I regret doing that.
Or you regret doing, right, either way. So so you start cultivating on Rosh Hashanah just regret. Nothing specific. Just this sense, or cultivating this idea that I know in my heart of hearts that there's more to me than I'm living. I feel it, I sense it, I want to be that person. I want to develop into that person. I want to discover that person. I want to take whatever steps that will help me get there.
I want to realize my potential.
You want to realize your potential. Once you cultivate that, everything will flow naturally. Then you will have, once you realize that what you're capable of, then you will have a healthy regret. Until you realize what you're capable of, you won't really regret it because you won't even know that you're capable of more. So we have to realize, yes.
So this is the day that we're judging ourselves?
Being-
This is our judgment of ourselves?
So that's very interesting. Yom Hadin a big part of Yom Hadin, right, is not just God judging us. It's us looking at our own lives internally and evaluating ourselves.
It's self-judging.
Yes. But self-judging not in the negative way.
Really?
No, because I would make a distinction between self...
What did I do wrong? What
No.
did I do good?
I would make a distinction, then we're going to get to Sharon. I'd make a distinction between self-evaluation and self-judgment. And maybe that's what you were going to say.
I was going to say that's the real listening.
Right.
That's that deep introspection.
Right, exactly. Right, that's the hearing. You hear yourself. So you're not judging yourself, I can't believe I did that, I'm such a terrible person. You meditate and you introspect and you realize, or hopefully plug in to this yearning that you have to be a better person, this capacity to be a better person, and let that launch you into, okay, if I can be that person, I regret not being that person, and now let me move forward.
So why do you call it a judgment day? I'm still confused. Why is Rosh Hashanah a judgment day?
Okay. Is everyone also confused?
Everyone's confused?
No. It makes no. Listen, I'm very happy to clarify. Judgment, here's the problem. You take a Hebrew word, you translate it into English, what have you just done? You've limited or changed the full intent of the word, because no translation can ever faithfully capture. So din isn't the judgment that you're thinking. Din is much more. A day of judgment is a day of evaluation, a day of introspection, a day of, that's what it is. That's what it is. That's really what it is. And I have to tell you, just as an aside, and I've said this many times before, and this is really important. There is a mitzvah to rebuke another person if you see somebody doing something that is damaging others, to make that person aware. There's an overt mitzvah to approach that person and say something, unless you believe that person will not be receptive to what you have to say. And the verse, and the rabbis derive from this verse, that if you don't believe that you can deliver this, it's called tochacha, you can deliver this tochacha in a way that the person will receive it. Or even if you deliver it perfectly, but the person just won't receive it, this mitzvah now becomes prohibited. It's one of the unique times where a mitzvah becomes prohibitive if you can't deliver it properly. So when you're judging other people, when you're looking at other people, right? We have to be careful. We have to understand that we're limited. Our perceptions are very limited, and we have to know what our limitations are. You know, on top of on top of an aron, on top of a Torah. I'm pointing to your fireplace, but on top of this fireplace or a Torah ark, quite often you will see the following words: Da lifnei mi ata omed. Know before whom you stand. You walk into a shul, it's a sacred space. Just know that you're in a sacred space. And by the way, we all love that. And if you're in a shul that doesn't feel like sacred space, find another shul. So it should be that. So you walk into a shul and you see right above the aron, Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. You're in front of God. Bring that seriousness to it. So I saw a rabbi once write, said, don't think for a moment that those words apply only between man and God. It's true between man and man as well. Always know before whom you stand. Before you judge them, before you give them advice, and don't we all live giving advice to other people? Be very careful before you do that. Always know before whom you stand. And do we even know ourselves? So be very cautious before you judge anyone, before you evaluate anyone, before you look at a situation and think you understand what's going on when you don't have a clue most of the times, because there's so much here that we're not seeing. We see far less than we do. So to recap, this is a period of time. First of all, we're in the period leading up to Rosh Hashanah, and I'm so glad you're here, because this is what we should be doing. What we should be doing is preparing. I tell people this all the time, especially business people, because I'm a business person also. Would you ever buy a business without having a business plan? Businesses don't succeed without business plans. And if they do, it's luck, and it's probably going to go south eventually. You need a business plan. Well, if we're serious about wanting to improve our lives and improve ourselves and plug in to this deeper part of ourselves, we need a business plan for it. And it starts during the month leading up. We take it seriously. What I suggest, and I do this for all the holidays, to make holidays really personal, I suggest that you don't rely on what's in the matzah. I suggest that you create your own al-chet. Your own personalized al-chet. Just don't say it too loud and shul.
Don't you have to say it?
What?
Actually, to get to the repentance level, you have to say.
No, you do have to.
To embarrass yourself, so you're.
No, but not in front of other people. You're actually not allowed to incriminate yourself in front of other people. Yeah. You're not allowed to do that.
If you say it loud enough just for yourself.
Audibly. I bury my head.
Pray, enough for you to say that.
Right, prayer actually has to be audible.
Oh, okay.
It's actually one of the laws of prayer. You can't scan the page. We're not into scanning. Right? And it has to be audible in order for it to be audible to the soul.
Even if you're by yourself in your own personal space.
Even in your own personal space. Yeah. So tshuva is a period of time, a month is preparing for this 10-day period of time of returning to our best selves. The shofar is supposed to remind us of a number of things. It's supposed to remind us of the divine capacities that we have within each and every one of us. The possibility to be a shofar in the world, to wake up the world, and the fact that we are never more awake and more energized and more clear as when God is blowing through us. That's when we're clear. That's when we're courageous. Courage just takes clarity. When you have clarity, you're courageous. I'm clear, and I'm very focused. Shofar is supposed to be an instrument for that. I can't believe you came out to 2 within 2 days. By the way, we now have, I want you to know this is awesome, we now have I think somebody from each of the 4 trips, including the 4th one coming up. You're representing the class of 2008 of 17. We have Mark from the first year. You were my first year, right?
I was 13.
Oh, yeah, you were. Randy, first year also. Then the next year, you.
was last year.
No, you were last year. Next year.
14 is.
It was 15.
No, who was 15? 15. Right, got it. And then 16. And you haven't gone yet.
13.
You're crashing.
The first one.
Oh, before me.
Yeah, before.
You were before me.
There was a small one.
Small, 10
before.
people, 12 people.
That was kind of.
I was the best.
Right.
That was the test run.
That was the test run. No, I think it was even smaller than 12. I think it was like 6 or 7.
It was 10.
Can you pause that? Can you turn it? Just hold on one sec. Do you know how to do it? Does anyone? I like to at the end of every class.